Forbidden love. I twisted the hem of my shirt, tugging nervously at the corner of my mouth. Why?
Yeah.
How could I forget? The night was silent. Moonlight slipped through the curtains into the bedroom. Adrian and I lay side by side, one arm curled under my shoulders, his other hand gently brushing the stray hair from my forehead. I narrowed my eyes, staring at his face, afraid this was all a dream. He spoke softly. Honey, I'll protect you for the rest of my life. I smiled. Okay, honey, I love you. Babe, I love you too. A whole night of sweet dreams. Adrian and I were back to 5 years ago. He hadn't been driven mad yet, and we were still the envy of every couple. Hawthorne's business was picking up. We'd even swapped houses and now lived right next to my parents. The neighbors had moved away, something about joining their son overseas. I grinned at Adrian. Isn't it perfect? No more neighbors.
Yeah.
Perfect. We grew closer every day. He had to hold me to fall asleep. Before leaving for work each morning, he needed a kiss. I knew this was what happiness looked like, yet I also knew it was all a lie. Adrian, when will you finally remember me? Honey, I'll be late tonight. Hawthorne has a rush project. All right, take care of yourself. Love you. Babe, love you too. After work I wandered the promenade, picking up a few outfits. I wanted to try them on at home to see if they fit. Boutique bags swinging. I hummed a tune while strolling toward the gated entrance. A black van screeched to a stop in front of me. Two burly men jumped out. One seized my arm, the other clamped a hand over my mouth. I thrashed and screamed for help. They shoved me into the back seat. One pinned me down while the other started the engine. My struggles weakened. My wrists were bound. My mouth gagged. The van sped off. To where? I didn't know. I turned to the window, hunting for any clue. Soon we reached the lakeside woods. Desolate streets. Only a few street lamps glowing dimly. The van finally stopped. They dragged me out and marched me to the front door of the lakefront estate, then shoved me inside. I looked up and froze. This was my parents' house. What's going on? Why bring me here? I demanded, terrified. This is Adrian's house, one thug said. Adrian. His name hit me like a punch. Why was he here? Why had he brought me? A woman stepped out of the house. She was dressed to the nines. Every inch the society matron. Bianca. She eyed me, jealousy and hatred flashing. You shameless bitch. Daring to show up, she snarled. Think you could hide forever? Adrian remembers everything now. My eyes widened in disbelief. He remembers. So he recalls every moment, our sweetness, our happiness, and our hatred and betrayal. Bianca smirked. Just wait, I'll make sure you regret it. She spun on her heel and went back inside. The moment she left, the men let go. I rubbed my aching wrists and flexed my arms. I'd have to find my own way out. I scanned the porch and spotted a security feed. I stepped up and tapped the lens. Instantly, Bianca's face appeared on the monitor. She hadn't expected me here. Shock flickered across her features. You want something? She asked cautiously. I smiled without replying. I simply watched, waiting. She hesitated, then suddenly barked, "Turn that camera off." I blinked. Her reflexes were fast. She was terrified I'd expose her secrets. I turned away from the estate. The men followed. Clearly they were hers. I climbed back into the van. No struggle. No screams. I sat quietly, waiting for her next move. Soon we stopped again at the gated entrance. Bianca sauntered out, smug grin still in place. She leaned toward the van. Take her to the wine cellar vault. I'll handle her myself. I watched her calmly, feeling nothing. I knew escape wouldn't be so simple this time. Blindfolded, wrists tied, I was delivered to the heavy door of the estate's wine cellar vault. Bianca pushed it open and stepped in. Her stare burned with hatred and jealousy. You bitch. Daring to appear, she screamed. Think you could hide? Adrian remembers everything. I gazed back coldly, silent. I wouldn't underestimate her again. She seemed pleased by my silence and swept out of the vault. I lowered my head, plotting. This time she'd come prepared. Slipping away would be hard, but I couldn't give up. I looked around. Junk and tools lined the walls. I tried to cut the ropes, but nothing worked. My wrists were bound too tight. I racked my brain for another plan. Suddenly her voice drifted down from upstairs, loud. On a call. I strained to listen. Adrian, finish her this time. Bianca shouted. I won't let her see tomorrow. Don't worry. I'll make her wish she were dead, Adrian's voice answered. My heart sank. He was in on it. This time I was truly cornered. I closed my eyes and prayed for a miracle, but I knew the odds were slim. They'd prepared too well. Chances of escape were almost zero. I exhaled and stopped struggling. I shut my eyes and waited for whatever came next. Maybe death wasn't so terrifying, just another unknown. I stopped thinking and simply waited. I don't know how long passed before loud banging rattled the door. Startled, I opened my eyes to a sliver of light seeping through the gap. That beam of light felt like hope itself, and my heart started started to beat again. I struggled to stand, only to find my wrists and ankles bound so tightly I couldn't move. I twisted desperately, trying to shoulder the door open. Outside, Bianca's furious roar erupted. "Are you insane? What do you think you're doing?" In that instant I knew someone had come to save me. I wrenched harder. The door inched wider as Bianca's shrieks grew louder, edged with panic. The gap widened. Light flooded in. At last the door burst wide. A man in black stood framed in the opening, tear tracks still wet on his cheeks. "Julian." I cried out his name. He rushed forward and crushed me against his chest. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. I shook my head. He exhaled in relief, then spun to glare at Bianca. "You viper, how dare you touch my kid sister," he thundered. "I'll kill you for this." Bianca's face went white. She hadn't expected him. She turned to run, too late. Julian seized her hair and yanked her back. "Today you pay in blood," he snarled. She thrashed, but she was no match for him. Finally she went limp, unconscious. I stared at Julian, overwhelmed that he'd risked his life for me. He looked back, eyes unreadable. "Did you really not know I'd come?" he asked softly. I hesitated. "I didn't know, but I knew you'd always protect me." He sighed, frustrated. "Then why provoke her? Let her send her masked assailants after you?" I fell silent. The question outran what I understood. "I didn't know she'd send people," I said. "I only wanted to expose her." Julian's frown said he didn't buy it. "Fine. Since you're safe, I'm leaving." He turned away. I watched his retreating back. Hollow inside, I knew our story had already been written. Bianca was sentenced for assault, justice served. Adrian was punished too. Hawthorne threw him out, and the once untouchable heir became a stray no one wanted. I stood beside Julian as he moved through the house, warmth swelling in my chest. Whatever came next, he would stand by me. "Julian, thank you," I whispered. He glanced over, smiling. "No need. My pleasure." We weren't siblings by blood anymore, yet we were closer than family. No shared genes, no contracts, only trust. "Julian, let's leave this place," I said. He blinked, then nodded. He stepped close, dipped his head, grin faint. "Okay, we'll build a new life." I reached out. His hand closed around mine. Side by side we walked toward the unknown. The past was behind us. Ahead waited something new. Somewhere far away, maybe, a home waited for us, just us two. I'd spend my days with Julian, see every sunrise and sunset the world could offer. We'd taste every flavor life had, grow together, meet every challenge. Maybe we'd be the happiest two people alive. Whatever happened, we'd cling to each other, never apart. That was our promise. "Julian, I love you," I breathed. He froze, then beamed. "I love you too." He pulled me tight. "Wherever we go, I'm with you." We held on as if we could melt into one. In that embrace I felt a warmth words can't touch. I would cherish it, cherish him, forever. "Julian, let's start over," I said. He smiled, squeezing my hand. "Let's go." But Hawthorne's reach was long. They weren't done with us. We ran for days, yet Bianca's hunters cornered us at last. "Julian, what now?" I gasped. Cold resolve flashed in his eyes. "If they want a fight, they'll get one. Move." He pulled me and we bolted into the nature reserve. Branches whipping past. Footsteps pounded behind. Julian's jaw clenched in concentration. "Are you all right?" I called. He gritted his teeth. "Just tired. Rest. I'll cover you." I reached for him. He caught my wrist, tugging me onward. "Can't stop. If they trap us in here, we're finished." We burst through the last line of pines and saw the distant town lights. "We made it," I cried. Julian's eyes widened in horror. "Danger, down." A volley of arrows hissed from the trees, slamming into us. I screamed as steel pierced fleas. And I toppled. Julian staggered, arrows studding his back. Blood spilled over his lips. "Julian." I tried to crawl to him, but another shaft pinned me to the earth. "Are you okay?" he asked, struggling to speak. "I'm fine." I clenched my teeth. "What about you?" Julian gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. "Looks like this time we're really not getting out." "No. Julian. You'll be all right." I was sobbing now. "Don't cry. I want you to live, really live." Julian used the last thread of strength in his body. "Julian." I screamed in terror. But Julian never opened his eyes again. He collapsed in front of me. Breath gone. My mind reeled. Everything in front of me blurred. All I felt was bottomless grief and despair. I knew I'd lost the single most important person in my life. Julian's leaving brought me pain so sharp it cut the air from my lungs. I knew I'd already lost the most important person. And now I couldn't even keep his body whole. "No, I want you back. All of you." I wailed. Yet no matter how hard I tried, Julian slipped away. I held him tight, but I could only watch his body fade in front of me. No. You can't. I screamed. But cruelty of reality told me Julian was gone. His departure left me drowning in grief and hopelessness. But I also knew I couldn't sink like this. Julian wanted me to live well. I couldn't let him down. So I would pull myself together and live, truly live. I'd remember him. Remember every bright moment we shared. I'd let his love reach more people. That way his life wouldn't have ended for nothing. I would live, not just for myself, but for Julian. Julian. Are you okay, over there? I hugged his shirt so tightly it almost felt warm. The world spun again. As if time twisted and sent me back to that familiar night. I stood there. Staring. Heart jammed with fear and confusion. Julian, who was he? Why had he appeared out of nowhere to save me? I widened my eyes. Trying to see his face. But all I caught was his back turned toward me. He saved me. Gratitude and doubt tangled in my chest. I wanted to step closer. To see his face. To learn who he was. Yet my body trembled as if bound by invisible rope. I struggled to break free. But I couldn't move a muscle. It felt as if I'd turned to stone. Terror and unease flooded my eyes. I shouted Julian's name. But he only rushed at the masked assailant. Back still to me. Under the lights his figure looked heroic. Fists hammering the masked man as if to tear him apart. Julian. Help me. I thrashed. Frantic to escape the grip that froze me. But my body stayed locked. I watched in horror as Julian, lit by the glare, pounded the masked assailant with blow after crushing blow. Yet the masked man seemed untouched. He only stared at me. A cold smile bending his lips. His eyes were glaciers. Cruel and murderous. Promising to rip me to pieces. Help. Somebody help. I screamed at the crowd. But their gaze was glued to the masked assailant. No one looked my way. Terror and despair swallowed me. I'd been abandoned. Only I could save myself from this monster. I drew a long breath. Forcing myself to calm. I wouldn't surrender. I had to find a way out. I gripped the railing beside me. Steadying my shaking legs. The masked assailant advanced step by step. Eyes devoid of mercy. I clung to the rail. Trembling. Certain the next second would send me crashing down. Then a familiar silhouette flashed into view. It was Julian. He appeared behind me. Eyes blazing with resolve. He rested a hand on my shoulder and murmured. Don't be afraid, I'm here. I seized his arm like it was the last lifeline on earth. Julian smiled. Clamped his fingers around my wrist. And pulled me away from the masked assailant. Surprise flickered across the attacker's face. He clearly hadn't expected Julian. He let out a cold laugh and came at me again. Julian stepped between us. Caught the man's wrist. And twisted until bones snapped. The masked assailant shrieked and crumpled. Without pause Julian grabbed the other wrist and broke it too. Leaving the man helpless on the ground. I stared. Stunned. His moves were swift. Decisive. Those of a trained fighter. I hugged Julian's arm. Clinging to my salvation. He gave my shoulder a gentle pat and whispered. Don't be afraid, I'm here. His gaze was steady and warm. Cutting through the darkness like a searchlight. I gripped his arm. In that instant I knew I'd found the one person I could never lose. From this moment on I would cherish him. Stay beside him forever. Julian ushered me back into the taxi. He stayed silent the whole ride. But I felt the storm inside him. I'm okay. Really, don't worry, I murmured. Stroking his hand. He squeezed my fingers. Eyes shining with fierce relief. I'm just glad you're safe, he said. Smiling. And that smile wrapped me in warmth. We sat in quiet while the driver waited for directions. Suddenly Julian spoke. Voice trembling slightly. Should we call the police? Call the police? I froze. The suggestion caught me off guard. I thought it over. Then shook my head. If we bring the cops in, we lose every way out. Why? He stared at me. Eyes wide. Because no one can know about us. The words tasted bitter. Julian went still. Clearly he hadn't expected that answer. His gaze locked on mine. Confusion swirling in his eyes. Us? I nodded. Tears threatening again, yes, whatever we are to each other. I clasped his hand tighter. We can't let anyone find out we're in love. Julian's breath hitched. The word had stunned him. He kept staring. Questions crowding his gaze. In love? I nodded. Tears slipping free. Yes. We're in love. I held his hand against my heart. I fell for you the first moment I saw you. Julian sat frozen. The simple truth hanging between us like a heartbeat. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. What did you say? I gripped his hand and whispered, I said. I love you. Julian froze. He clearly hadn't expected those words. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. You really mean it? I gripped his hand and whispered, yes. I mean it. Julian froze. He clearly hadn't expected those words. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. I don't know. I gripped his hand and whispered, I know. I know. Julian froze. He clearly hadn't expected those words. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. Why? I gripped his hand and whispered, because I like you. From that moment on, my life turned upside down. Julian became a central part of my world. And we grew closer every day. We ate together. Strolled the promenade together. Watched movies together, like the happiest couple alive. But the happiness didn't last. The masked assailant found me again. Determined to tear Julian and me apart. I slipped into the loft apartment. Grabbed the spare key from under the bed. And escaped. I rushed to Julian's place and found him unconscious on the floor. I held him tight. Tears flooding my eyes. I dialed 911 and rode with him to the hospital. On the white hospital sheets Julian lay motionless. Face pale yet his gaze steady and warm when it opened. I clasped his hand. As though I could brand the feel of it into my heart. You're awake. I cried out. Joy spilling across my face. Julian's eyes fluttered open. Clouded with doubt and confusion. What happened to me? His voice was hoarse. You were hurt. I squeezed his hand and whispered, the masked assailant, what about him? Julian struggled upright. Worry flashing in his eyes. I brushed my fingers across his cheek. Relax. We subdued him. I gave a small smile. Though bitterness pooled inside me. Why did he come after you? Julian pushed himself up. Eyes full of doubt and confusion. I stroked his face. Because he wants to split us apart. Julian froze. He clearly hadn't expected that. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. Split us apart? I nodded. Tears brimming again, yes. He wants to split us apart. I held his hand tightly. But, why? Julian sat up. Searching my face. I caressed his cheek. Because he's in love with me. Julian froze. The words hung between us. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. He loves you? I nodded. Tears sliding down, yes. He loves me. I squeezed his fingers. Why would he? Julian leaned forward. Voice rough with disbelief. I brushed the hair from his forehead. Because he's jealous of me. Julian froze again. He stared at me. Eyes flickering with doubt and confusion. Jealous of you? I nodded. Fresh tears falling, yes. Jealous of me. I clasped his hand. Why is he jealous of you? Julian's voice cracked. I traced the line of his jaw. Because he can't have me. Julian froze. Stunned. Later. Julian and I were finally together. The masked assailant was locked away in Riverdale. He could never hurt us again. Never poison what we had. We treasured each other. Leaned on each other. Faced every challenge side by side. Whatever storm came. We would brave it together and build the future we dreamed of. At last. On a perfect day. Julian and I held our grand wedding ceremony. Friends and family gathered to witness our moment of joy. I walked toward him in a white wedding gown. Radiant. He stood in a crisp tuxedo. Eyes soft with love. Axing. Will you marry me? Julian asked. Voice steady and gentle. I nodded. Tears sparkling. I will. I gripped his hands, smiling through the tears. And I will. Julian smiled back, happiness shining in his eyes. We exchanged wedding bands and sealed our vows with a kiss. Cheers erupted around us, blessings raining down. From that day on, Julian and I lived the life we'd longed for. We traveled to places we'd only imagined, explored the world hand in hand. We stood by each other through every twist of fate, sun-drenched mornings or storm-tossed nights. We clung together and never let go. Our road had been strewn with thorns, yet love carried us to the end. Now we cherish one another, support one another, and shape the future we deserve. The masked assailant remains in Riverdale, powerless to touch us. His envy tried to divide us, but it only fused us closer. His jealousy became the spark that made our bond unbreakable. We value each other more because of what we survived. Before me lies a fresh desk calendar, a fresh room, a fresh me. I stare at it all as if I've slipped through time. I realize I'm back in the present. In reality, I don't know how to face it yet, but I know I must. I draw a deep breath, feel cool air flood my lungs. I try to slow my racing heart, but it drums like a war beat. I walk to the desk calendar and slowly turn the first page. A new date greets me, a new beginning, a new challenge.